Okay, give it 2 seconds. The line for loading is loading. Oh, it's live now. Okay. Okay, so what we'll do, Sasa will introduce himself, introduce the topic. Albert will introduce himself, then I'll start. Me, I never introduce myself. So I just have, I'm the moderator, as Shiro knows. Saya, just start, introduce yourself, and then, yeah.
So hi, everyone. My name is Saya Jackson. I'm a Kenyan. I'm a life scientist and turned instructional learning experience designer. So what I basically do is I create immersive learning experiences, and I am passionate about helping individuals navigate challenging transitions without losing voice, vision, or value. And welcome again to this authentic dialogue, where today we'll be looking at what we call the people currency, or famously known as emotional intelligence. Now, you've probably had many quotes around this topic or things remotely related to it. Things like, your IQ will get you the job or will get you in the door, but your EQ, your emotional intelligence, will keep you on the job or grow you in the job. You've had quotes like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. This and many others indicate our understanding of the role and place that we have in knowing and mastering ourselves, and then interacting beautifully with others. There's something inherent in us that seems to realize that the notion of A, a self-made individual is not true, and that B, there's no success that does not affect or involve other people. However, our education systems, being again what they are, have most often than not focused on one version of intelligence, which is the intellectual, and our grading systems, especially those who come from Kenya, where I do, have largely been about what you can score in math and in English and in chemistry or whichever other science, but has little had to do with training you to be a good human being. So because EQ has not been rewarded, very often it has therefore not been cultivated, and individuals have therefore walked into what we call the real world out there, whether it's the world of marriage, the world of human interaction, the world of work, and they have been great at paperwork, but have stagnated or been derailed because they've not been too great at the emotional intelligence. Though I'm a scientist, I'm a history junkie, and one phenomenon that keeps fascinating me, and you'll notice every time we have these talks, I always have a reference to it, is the African migrations. How we moved nations. You know, every time we talk about the migrations, people imagine that it was a small tribe or a small group. No, it was entire nations. The Luo are a nation. You know, they're so big a nation, they spread from Kenya all the way to Sudan. That's a big, big landmass. The Luhya are a nation. We spread from Western Kenya all through to Uganda and touch parts of the Congo. And so I imagine how individuals like this moved, the movement of millions of people in a time when there was no phones or our modern means of telecommunication is still a phenomenon that I believe is understudied or misunderstood or not well understood. But one thing is for sure, communities that did well in two things: keeping together as a community as they moved, and number two, settling in new places and living with a measure of harmony with their neighbors, were communities that had relative better emotional intelligence. I know what I'll say now will seem very controversial, but I will contrast two tribes, for instance, in Kenya. One tribe is the Kisii of Kenya, who the stereotype they have is they are prone to tantrums of temper, shortness of temper and everything. Whether the tantrum is, whether the stereotype is true or not, I leave it out to judge. But for those who understand the map of Kenya, Kisumu was named by the Kisii because of the first dwellers there. Kericho was named by the Kisii because of the first dwellers there. Kabianga is actually a Kisii name, meaning it has refused. So it's amazing that at one point, it seems the Kisii were living in a stretch of land that touched Kisumu, which is on the border, which is on the shores of Lake Victoria, and came all the way through to Kericho, Kabianga, and all the way to the hills of Manga, where they now are. But something seems to be off with them as a community, that increasingly over time, they moved and came uphill and ended up being domiciled in a place where they were surrounded by communities and tribes that they were enemies with. On one end is the Maasai, the other end is the Luo, the other end is the Kipsigis. So funny enough, they are a Bantu tribe, but they ended up somehow moving to be surrounded by an entire Nilotic community. And when you study the history, they'd always been perpetually at war until something unique happened. The elders of the Kisii came together and realized this cannot continue. And so there was, especially with the Kipsigis, who are very ferocious. So to procure peace, they came up with a genius idea. They came up with a concept of almost peace children. They realized that the Kipsigis are not farmers, they're not very good farmers. And therefore, during periods of food shortage, the Kipsigis would A, raid Kisii land more because Kisis were farmers, and B, the Kipsigis would be vulnerable. So what they did is they did a child exchange. They allowed that Kipsigis children during periods of hunger could come and were literally taken into Kisii homes. And as a result, peace was able to be procured. This for me was perhaps one among many other tales, which if we would closely re-examine the African migration, speak to individuals who won a war, who won conflict, not by force of might, because they were outnumbered, but because of a showcase of emotional intelligence. They were able to show empathy and sympathy to their neighbors. And to date, there are certain genealogies within Kisii and Kipsigis. When you follow, you'll find there's a lot of intertwining. In fact, it's rumored that individuals like the late Kipkalia Kones has his ancestry within the Kisii community. Such was the intermingling that for quite an amount of season of time, peace was able to be procured. What's my point? Emotional intelligence will not only get you into the door, but emotional intelligence has shaped communities, has shaped societies, has shaped life. By conquering it, we'll be able to conquer many other areas of life. And it is my hope and trust that today we'll be able to learn both the theory and the mechanics of how to become emotionally intelligent people. In the past, it saved a community like the Kisii. Going into the future, as we become a global community, I hope this emotional intelligence will help us forge communities that thrive on the global stage. Back to you in studio.
No, Titian should employ us. Tumerudi studioni. Haya. Albert, but then Saya always does the history spiel, and you rearrange Malkiat Singh and S.C. Patel in your head when he tells us this stuff. This is where we learn. You know, people always say, "Oh, I don't use the 844 or the CBC. I learned." This is where we learn. We need to relate to our history, and we are rich in history. And I want you to introduce yourself and introduce to us the topic. And if you can break down like what are emotions, what is intelligence, then the portmanteau of the two words and what it means. Okay. Go ahead. And if you feel like your video is, your, what is it called? You're getting staccato in your video, you can put it off. We understand. I make fun of Kenyans, the 1G network, we understand.
Hey, but just don't laugh at us. We got food. We are good. Don't joke with our G's. We are on to 4G, my dear. Yeah?
Okay.
To compare it, I do Pelekana hapa kwa hapa.
Okay, go ahead.
So hello everybody, my name is Albert Migoa. I define myself as a wellness creator. So as a wellness creator, I do three key things. Number one, I'm a counseling psychologist. Number two, I train and coach on emotional intelligence. And number three, I am involved in aspects of mentorship. So I'll slightly explain each of the three. One, as a counseling psychologist, I do what you call counseling and psychosocial support for both individuals and groups. In the recent past, I've done a lot of collaborative work with the Kenya Red Cross, working in informal settlements with various targets, most notably young men, and a program titled Young Men Resilience. And this was a program that sought to upskill young men between the ages of 17 to 30 years old with various life skills, keeping in mind young men in such contexts go through a myriad of challenges. My role there was threefold. One, I was doing individual counseling. Two, I was offering group therapy. And three, giving what you call mental health talks. So under mental health talks, I'll talk about a topic like, let's say, critical thinking and decision making. And finally, on a needs basis, I would also do referral linkages when the need arose. Besides that, I would also do support in case of emergencies and responses. On the second leg of emotional intelligence, I said this is now my This is the thing for me, because for me, my journey into EI began in the slum area, and I always give this story. There's one particular time I was to go and give a group therapy session with a young man, only to reach and realize that the session, the one we talk about WASH stands for water, sanitation, and hygiene. And as you would imagine, my horror, I had little knowledge on WASH, and on top of that, that election yamta was an issue. But besides that, I just had to tap onto the knowledge that I had. I had to, in as far as WASH is concerned, I had to tap into my knowledge of Sheng, and at the end of the day, I communicated. And there, I learned I was adaptable and I was flexible, which are key tenets of emotional intelligence. Besides that, I've had trainings with various organizations and institutions, namely Emerging Leaders Foundation, the ICT Authority, NATCOM UNESCO, and a range of Awareness 360, and the list goes on and on. I've had sessions with over 2,000 individuals. I have been nominated for an award. I was nominated as a Volunteer of the Year last year, 2021, for the work I did on mental health under COVID, in which I did counseling and offering what you call basic PFA and debriefing to various target groups, both in quarantine, isolation, and in the community. I've also been recognized for my work on emotional intelligence. I was nominated as Person of the Week by the Nation on that dated 16th October 2020. And most recently, I was quoted as an authority under the Kenya Business Daily, again on emotional intelligence, dated February 2022. And for me, it's been great because with the skills I've been able to garner in EI, I've been able to trust myself and really build myself as a brand. My third tier is mentorship. So I am involved in mentorship both at an individual level and institutional level. So at an individual level, I mentor young people locally, namely I've got mentees who are students. In fact, I'm happy to announce one of my mentees scored a clean A in the just released KCC results. I'm very excited about that. And I've got a mentee who I'm mentoring in India. He's doing work around mental wellness. Besides that, I have background training in media, the civil society space, that's development communication, marketing, and I've got interest in IT. Specifically, currently, I am heading the communication and public relations wing at the Internet Society of Kenya. I'm currently a certified social entrepreneur, and I'm also a certified digital skills trainer. And I also do a lot of work on with First Lego League East Africa, organizing competitions for young children, that's connected to what you call STEAM, that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, that seeks to instill various competencies among young children between the ages of 6 to 16, where we have things such as critical thinking, decision-making, problem solving, and professionalism. So in summation, that is who I am and what I be, and the list is diverse, as you can see. But remember, for you to live in this world, you can't just be known for one thing. I learned another word the other day, and I'd like to share with you. You must be multilicious. You must be multilicious. Be able to have multiple skills, especially during this period we are in of COVID. Because you realize having one thing or one track in as far as sustainability, day-to-day life is not very tenable in today's world. Now, as I begin into EI, the history is very interesting, I must say. The term EI was made very popular in the mid-90s by one psychologist known as Daniel Goleman. And he wrote a book titled Why EQ, that's Emotional Intelligence, Matters More Than IQ. And in his book, he came up with certain tenets, which I'm going to talk about, that make up emotional intelligence. And I'll get there shortly. But before I begin, I like to begin by unpacking what emotional intelligence is. And the first thing I do, I unpack the term, what are emotions, okay? What really are they? So emotions are biological processes that emanate from a part of our brain known as the amygdala. So the amygdala concerns itself with various emotions such as anger and fear and etc. So that's where emotions come from. And a very good example is we have what you call the fright or flight. And I always say, whenever you're walking on your way home or your way to work, and you come across a snake on the road, what do? I know some of you, like myself, we scream and we really run. We really run for safety. So that is your fright. So that's what emotions really are. So they're biological processes. Intelligence, on the other hand, intelligence, this is a term that has been defined differently by different people. But the one thing many researchers have agreed upon in as far as intelligence is concerned, that intelligence has got two key components. The first one is the ability to learn from experience, and two, the ability to adapt to various life situations. So learning from experience in what sense? A good example, I say traffic in Nairobi. When you on your way to work from the house and you live somewhere along Langata Road, and on a particular day, you decide to leave the house by 7, or let's say 7:45, thereabouts. When you hit Langata, you'll find a long traffic. You'll find traffic running all the way towards either Uru Highway or all the way to Nyayo House. That can make you be on the road for anywhere between an hour to 3 hours. Now, having experienced that on a specific day, what do? You then will want to avoid that jam. And how will you do that? Perhaps the following day, you'll do what? You'll wake up early, okay? You'll wake up early to avoid the jam. So you'll wake up maybe by 5. You'll wake up maybe by 5:30, okay? Now, that by itself has shown you have learned from an experience. You have learned from the experience of being caught up in traffic. And by extension, you have adapted, because now you've adapted to Langata Road and the characteristics of that particular road. And that for you to be able to get where you want to be at a specific time, you need to live at a certain time. So 2 key tenets of intelligence: learning from experience and adaptability. So then, what is emotional intelligence? Now, emotional intelligence, once again, it has been defined in many ways. But I must say, one definition that really I hold dear to my heart is the definition that states that emotional intelligence is being able to understand and manage your emotions and that of other people. In simple terms, it's also known as people skills. Okay? People skills. How to relate with people. But remember, for you to relate with people, you must also be able to understand and relate with yourself. Okay? Now, which now brings me to the competency models of emotional intelligence. Like I said, it is very broad, and I'll try my best to really explain it. Just give me a minute.
And Albert, I've put up something that I think you would want to use. Is this okay? Can you can see my screen, right?
Yes, just give me a minute.
Or do you have something to share? I can remove this, then you share. But this I think is the crux of emotional intelligence.
What we can do, we can just have it there.
Okay, I can stop sharing.
What we can do, I can, let me just explain.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we can then put it up later on, so we can just see where what I've said falls.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I will use the 4 competency models of Daniel Goleman. And the first one is what I call self-awareness. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness concerns itself with being able to understand, identify, and evaluate your emotions. Kwa Waswahili tunasema kujielewa na kujijua na kujitambua. How do you understand yourself? Okay? Do you know yourself? Do you know your being? Okay? And self-awareness is further divided into 3 key areas. Number 1, emotional awareness. So emotional awareness concerns itself with being able to understand your emotions as a person at any one given time. So when you're feeling happy in a situation, when you're feeling unhappy, be able to identify that emotion and elicit a requisite response. The second one is accurate self-assessment. So accurate self-assessment concerns itself with knowing one's strengths and one's weaknesses. Okay? And that is very important in self-awareness. You must know your strengths. You must know your weaknesses. And when you do that, you then become a much better person. Thirdly, your self-confidence. Self-confidence is knowing your worth, knowing your self-worth. And self-confidence here does not exist by itself. I always have what I call my 3 C's that builds one's self-confidence. And they are as follows. Now, these are mine. 1, I call it content. The next, I call it context. The third, I call communication. Why is that so? Remember, in every scenario, that now which is the context, you must have content. And in order to deliver that content, you must then communicate appropriately. I will give a scenario. You can imagine you're going for an interview, okay, as a young person. And you assume maybe you're going to, I don't know, let's say either Google, or maybe here in Kenya, you're going to the Ministry of Health. And as a young person, okay, and you go there and you're dressed in a particular way. So as a young man, I go there with dreads and I have a suit, okay? Now, you could have the content, okay? You could have even the communication skills. But remember, you're going to a panel with a group of people of a certain mindset. And in this case, we're talking about with a lack of a better word, the wazee. You meet them at the panel. And there's a way they view people with the dreads, especially in certain positions. So you'll realize in the aspect of context, you have failed. So when you fail content, you fail When you fail in any of those, then your confidence is hit. Your self-confidence is hit. So for you to enhance your self-confidence, according to me, those three C's are important. Your content, your context, and your communication. What do you say? For me, I always say communication is what you say and what you don't say. It is what you do, it's what you don't do. How do you articulate yourself? How do you present yourself? Okay? Now, the next one. No, how can one enhance their self-awareness? There are many ways. There are many ways. But one of them is traditional, I say, journaling. Write down how you're feeling about something. How you feeling about a specific scenario, about a specific issue. I know our sisters are really good at this, and perhaps that's why they're better. They're better at handling, the various issues they're going through. And like most of us men who don't do that, so perhaps, Majama, when you're here, those who are here, it could be something we would want to try. The next thing is self-regulation. Self-regulation. So, and what is self-regulation? Self-regulation concerns itself with being able to understand and manage your emotions. How do you manage your emotions? And this is a big one, because emotions happen at every given time in every given scenario. And the thing is, what do you do? How do you handle it? How do you handle a scenario where, for instance, you're in the office, somebody calls you a certain name? What do you do? You're in the office, you experience, for the ladies, you experience mansplaining. For the men, you experience harassment. What do you do? And perhaps the person doing that is either a peer or an immediate boss. What do you do? Do you attack with words? Do you attack physically? Because remember, for every action, there's a consequence. So you need to be very aware of your emotions and how to manage it. And sometimes in very unpleasant situations, there's no book in this. And the beautiful thing about emotional intelligence, it's something you learn on a day-to-day basis. So the thing is, just take a step back and ask yourself this question that I always ask myself. What does it mean? What does it mean if I slap this person? What does it mean if I punch, kick, or abuse this person? Because that question will guide me in my action. So, what can we do in order to manage our emotions? One, take time, be silent. Count 1 to 3 and back. 2, sometimes just be still. Don't say anything. Don't respond. Because when you respond, you'll not be able to take it back. It has now gone, it has left the building, it is out in the ether. The third category is social awareness. And social awareness concerns itself with being able to understand and respond to the needs of other people. Actually, I look at it as courtesy, if you ask me. How courteous are you to people? Are you aware of what's going on around you? So again, there are 3 key things under social awareness. 1, empathy, where you're able to feel what somebody is feeling at any one given time, which is a very key trait in emotional intelligence, being able to be empathetic. There's once I had a friend of mine who had a boss. My friend is female, the boss was male. And she was in her early law career. And interestingly enough, the children were like born a few weeks apart, I think 2 or 3 weeks apart. And there's one time she worked overnight in the office till maybe around 8, 9. She got a really serious telling off from her male boss. He said, this cannot happen. You must go home and spend time with your child. You know, that is somebody who exhibited empathy, you know, though male, empathetic. And that's what I mean. For me, I always say there's need, when I'm at this, I want to bring, let me get a bit controversial here. I want to bring even the aspect of gender in this sense. I think it is okay for a man to tap into his female side, because remember, as male or female, we've got our male side or female side, right? This scenario I've given, this male boss tapped onto his female side, and there's nothing wrong. I think for me, it just makes you that much stronger and that much better of a leader. Okay? The other aspect of social awareness is organizational dynamics. That one you never miss anywhere. Being able to understand the attitudes, the perceptions, the politics of any place you are in. Very important. You must be in the position to lean in and understand what is happening here. Who is so and so? What does it mean? You know, when, for example, you hear that person XYZ is said to be the best marketer, lean in and find out, what makes her, what makes him, what makes them the best marketer? You know, when you hear so and so was awarded the best employee of the week, lean in and find out what caused this, you know. Then the other one is, the final one is what I call social awareness. And here, not social awareness, it's more of, service orientation, where in service orientation, you now are focused on responding to the needs of other people. So for instance, you could be at work, you could be at home, maybe you're going to the kitchen, let's say in the house, in the kitchen, you want to go get maybe a glass of water, and you could either ask either your partner or your husband or your wife if they would like something from the kitchen as well. It means you're being sensitive to them, you're being socially aware. And what you're exhibiting there is the aspect of service orientation. Or you're in the office, you're going to fix yourself a cup of coffee. You could actually collect the same thing. Would you like a cup of tea as well? So things like that. Or you go to a restaurant and you ask for the menu. You want to pick a specific meal, and the waiter even suggests something better on the menu. You see that perhaps maybe you want nyama choma and ugali like me. That's what I love. Then maybe somebody then comes and says, "Hey, by the way, there's something called pilau. Try it. It's really good. You know, it has everything, meat and everything that you like." So then I said, okay, fine, let me try it. So that person has exhibited the aspect of social awareness, and in particular, the aspect of service orientation. Now, the final tier is what I call relationship management. How do you manage relationships? You know, how do you relate with people? How do you engage with people? And the thing about this particular aspect of emotional intelligence is the fact that it's commonly found amongst leaders. And thereby, there are numerous traits that are within this competency. And they're as follows. One, you have somebody who is a change agent, an individual who wants to bring about change. Two, development catalyst. You just want to grow. And you grow through positive criticisms. Okay, being able to take that criticism and not catching feelings about them and learning and growing from them. Then there's the aspect of problem solving. How do you solve problems? You know, So it means for you to be able to be a problem solver, you need to be a critical thinker. Then we have the aspect of conflict management. How do you manage conflicts? Because conflicts happen every time. How do you manage the conflicts? Then there's the aspect of teamwork and collaboration. How do you work with people? How do you work in teams? How do you understand people and their diversities and the diversity in personalities and characters and way of doing things, and bring people together working towards a particular goal or a particular vision? Then you've got networking. How do you network? How do you have meaningful networks? Okay? So on and so forth. And as I conclude on these competencies, I like to end by saying this. Emotional intelligence actually is the foundation of all critical life skills you can think about. Whether it is decision making, problem solving, critical thinking, time management, EI or EQ is the foundation of all those life skills. I would also like to bring in a distinction, or I'd like to also group in the aspect of IQ, because IQ and EQ also go together. Now, IQ really is intelligent quotient, which is a score derived from tests that are done. And as you all know, especially those from Kenya, one good way of assessing that is through our system, the 844, where you assess for KCPE and KCSE, and then you're graded, the graded system. Okay, and it is important because it makes you a critical thinker. Enables you to. And for me, I like it because it makes you want to read. Having the hunger and zeal to get information and seek information. But that's not enough, okay? That's not enough. And as they always say, IQ will actually get you to the door, which means you will all have the qualifications. For instance, if you're all applying for a job as an accountant, those basic requirements that everybody must meet, whether it's a BA or a master's, etc. That's the IQ. But your progress in that organization or in your own development will be dependent on your EQ. How proactive you are, how you communicate, how you brand yourself. In fact, branding, that's another challenge. I think that's a conversation for another day. How you brand yourself, how you position yourself, how you manage your time, all will build onto that. So what am I saying? For you to be successful and effective, EQ is important, but we also need the IQ because they work together. Yes, I think when it comes to EQ, I'll stop at that. Over to you, Posa.
Let me reshare the slide so that you can recap, especially for the people who joined a bit late. Then okay. Then Utaeka, you see our bad manners of speaking Swahili everywhere. At least you can put things into context. So just recap, because I think this covers everything.
Okay. Yes. So as you can see from
colors.
As you can see from the slide, EQ has got 4 key components. We've got self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Okay? So under self-awareness here, we're seeing we've got emotional self-awareness. I talked of self-confidence and accurate self-assessment. Under the next tier of emotional intelligence, we've got self-management. And under that, we've got aspects of adaptability, having a positive outlook, achievement-oriented, and emotional self-control. And we defined self-awareness as being able to identify, understand, and evaluate your own emotions. And we defined self-management concerning itself with being able to understand and manage your own emotions. And social awareness is understanding and responding to the needs of other people. There are aspects of social awareness, and there are empathy, which is feeling and sensing other people's needs. Organizational awareness or dynamics, being able to understand the politics that happen in an organization. And then service orientation, responding to the needs of other people. Then a relationship management, we've got which concerns itself with being able to manage relationships, relate and interact with people. There are a couple of competencies under that. Under relationship management, we talk of influence, conflict management, being an inspirational leader, coaching and mentoring, and teamwork. So in summation, these are the key components of emotional intelligence. And we say that emotional intelligence is, unlike IQ, is a skill that we learn every single day. A good example, one may call themselves you may be a good communicator, but there could be an aspect of communication that you may want to improve on. That could be, for instance, it could either be verbal or it could be written. So the idea is to see how best you can employ all the various competencies and their various features. And when you do that, you'll be in that much better position to be more emotionally intelligent. Over to you, Posa.
Thank you. I think that is very, very clear. Saya, do you want to add anything else at the moment? Saya.
So far, it's comprehensively done. I am just trying to keep an eye on the questions on the other side.
Okay. And Maureen, you're on the call. I hear you're also an EQ coach. Do you want to add anything? Maureen Ademba.
No, I'm still following. Thanks.
Okay. So my other question. Let me put back this slide and I explain my usual thought process. Oh gosh, okay, this is unclear, but let me just look for a clear one. Just give me a minute. Okay, no, my question is, when do you start teaching emotional intelligence, as in how do we incorporate it into, because I'm very pro-teen and pro-child, when do we start teaching the children how to get these people skills and how to get emotional intelligence so that they at least when they are of age and they can start working, they are people you can work with. When and how do we go about it, Albert?
Thank you very much, Posa, for your question. For me, the when is during the developmental stages. Okay.
Okay.
When they can understand, maybe even at the age of 4 or 5, and it starts with very simple things like good morning, thank you, can I help you? You know, those simple, basic. I start with the mannerisms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning, thank you. How are you feeling today? You know, when giving your child small assignments, like you're washing your clothes, tell them to hold for you the pegs. You know, telling them, when you have something, you're eating a meal, share, think of your friend, think of your brother, think of your sister. When you begin this, because now you're creating a value system, it will be instilled in their minds. And wherever they go, they'll carry it on with them, whether it's at home, school, at church, or any other institution. So that when a child, from childhood, you begin in the home, in the family, with those values, and then it's carried on, it's continuously done, even as they get older.
Okay. And how do we, for the children who don't learn the manners, how do we incorporate this in our schools and institutions of learning as we go, as we go ahead? How do we incorporate this? Because we've met those children who have no empathy, nothing at all, because they were never taught. So how do we incorporate it into a physics lesson and double math in the afternoon?
I think for me now, there's need now to incorporate such things in the curriculum. And here is when now the government needs to come in and really figure out how they can incorporate some of these skills into the curriculum so that it can be taught. And I think as that is happening, there needs to be certain standards that are set in schools, that when we're here, we're respectful, set and adhered to, those tenets, those principles of obedience, of honesty, of kindness, those very simple ones that if you're not able to meet this, then I'm sorry, we cannot be with you. So it requires a lot of the tough conversations that need to happen. So one, in the curriculum, it needs to be incorporated in the curriculum and taught in the schools. And two, schools need to really adhere to their principles and values that they stand for, whereby they know as a school, this is what we stand for. And if a student cannot exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then perhaps it's not a place for him or her.
Jackie, I see you on the call and you're the teacher over here because I know you shall just be on the spot. Do you agree with Albert, or how else can we incorporate this? And you can unmute and speak.
Thank you, Posa. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I do agree with what Albert has said. In fact, in every curriculum, other than the academic content, there are usually those desirable dispositions or transdisciplinary skills that are expected. For example, you did ask something about a physics lesson or a math lesson. So I'm going in there as a teacher to teach a concept, but in the process of teaching that concept, there is how I expect the learners to behave. In the sense that if we are going to carry out an experiment, if we are going to plan an experiment, we are going to work either in pairs or in groups. And in the process of doing that, there are certain skills that are expected to be displayed. For example, communication. How are we going to communicate with each other? How are we going to share the resources that are available? How are we going to react when something backfires and it's my team member who is doing that? So you'll find, for example, if I take the IB, there's something known as the IB learner profile. So it tells you inquirers, independent thinkers, respectful. You come to the Cambridge, they'll tell you self-directed learners, empathetic, reflective learners. You come to the international primary curriculum, you will find something like cooperative, adaptable, and all that. So they are there. The question is how they are actually embedded in the day-to-day teaching and learning process. So they are there. It's a question of the head teachers or the people responsible. Do they actively ensure that this becomes the language of the institution? The other thing that schools can do is, of course, every school has its vision and mission or guiding statements. So some schools will tell you, in God we trust. What is that really saying? What is that? What does that look like when it's deconstructed, when it's in action? Because the guiding statements are meant to inform everything we do, whether it's in the classroom or outside the classroom. Other statement, you'll see other statements like hard work pays. What does that mean? So there's need for maybe reflecting on what we call our mission and vision and how it really develops this kind of person that we would want, who would then have this emotional intelligence, who would be able to work as part of a team, who would be able to fit in the workplace, who would be able to fit into the diversity that they're going to meet up there. So it's very possible for it to be part and parcel of the curriculum. It is factored by the curriculum developers. In Kenya, I know we have the values and all that. The question is, do we actively ensure that they are included in the day-to-day lessons? Now, there's something Albert said about, he mentioned one of the dispositions as obedience. As a teacher, I'd probably argue with that by asking, do we really want to talk about obedience, or do we want to talk about respect and understanding? Because obedience does come out as being blind following. Yeah, so it is possible. Posa, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Saya and Albert digest on Christopher Morara's question, so my next point is we've discussed how we can incorporate this in institution of learning. So if that ball passes, like the person wasn't taught at home, the person did not get any of the EQ components in the schools, and then you meet them at the workplace, and they are good IQ-wise, and you want to give them a chance. I don't see any HR I know on the call, but how are we incorporating this in our work environment so that we can have people we can work with who are emotionally intelligent, and so that it reduces work-induced trauma. We did work-induced trauma a couple of months ago, and I'm thinking this is a component that contributes to work-induced trauma. How are we incorporating this in our workplaces? And my other question is, how are we able to limit the bad manners we see on TV in terms of what the political space reveals to us, and it's televised, it is everywhere, it's not emotionally intelligent, it's stupid, it's banal, it's annoying. How do we limit that, and how do we do the work thing? Anyone can take a stab at this. Albert, you look like you're ready to go.
Okay.
And Christopher's question is waiting.
Okay. I think I'll begin with the bad manners on TV by politicians.
Yes.
Now, let me wake you up to a very rude reality. You need to understand the first question is, who owns the media? Number one. Mm-hmm. If you unearth, you'll realize it is the very same politicians. Okay? So that then informs the news, that then informs the narrative. Okay? That even influences the editors. Okay? Because then now they will now know, they now determine what news to relay and what news not to relay. And unfortunately, issues around, forget about EI, mental health, for the longest time in this country has not been deemed to be, priority. Politics, you get sound bites, you have got advertisers, so it sells, okay? So when it comes to that, unfortunately, Portia, it will be difficult because there are other dynamics which are involved. Having said that, when it comes to you as a person, now you can limit yourself and know what you can take. The ability to filter comes in, okay? You pick on what you of course, the bad manners, you know what to pick and what not to pick. So in this case, the bad manners you avoid. Now the trickiest part now is when it comes down to the young ones, because they're very impressionable. They see and they hear. So I feel it's unfortunate. It's also not an easy task, because please remember, nowadays with the advent of technology, Android phones, iPhones, children have got access. But having said that, you can always limit that. I mean, whenever you see certain things appearing on television, you can simply just put it off or avoid the channel. If it is if it's the phone, then the apps you can put in place to avoid certain pop-ups and certain communication. So I think that can happen in that regard. When it comes down to the question around EI and employment, I think for me, the biggest question goes down to the recruitment process. How are people recruited? Number one. How are people onboarded for another? I say this because one of the biggest challenges, I'm no HR professional, by the way, based purely on my experience, one of the biggest challenge that employers have with employees stem from mainly those two things. Because you recruit somebody, either one who has no passion or two is not qualified, among many other reasons. So you are then faced with a challenge because this person is likely not to perform. Okay, so the recruitment is a problem. Then the onboarding. Once this person has been recruited, you now have to take them through the organization. I say this because there's one time I had a session with an organization and I was really, really disturbed. I asked the employees a couple of questions, but the key ones were the ones as follows. I asked them, what is your mission? What is your vision? What are your values? What are your objectives? They were at pains to explain those, to state them rather. They were at pains. And keeping in mind, they've been there for between 2 years to 5 years. There's a problem already from that. And I can only imagine that could be a scenario that plays out in many organizations, perhaps locally in Kenya and even without. So for me, I think when it comes to employment, I look at the issue when it comes to recruitment process and the onboarding.
I think that's very clear. Yeah, but and we again, I'll defer people to watch. We did a very comprehensive work-induced trauma, and we discussed the whole onboarding stuff, because some people are you know, the msemo bora kazi, not kazi bora. They just come, clock in and clock out, and never get to do anything else. They just keep doing the same thing over and over again, just because they're just there to earn their coin and tick that they came and worked and did their work, and they never learn how to do things differently. Sire, when I see you on camera, I know you want to say something. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. Just a few pointers for the question that Christopher has asked. It points to individuals who react to every adverse social situation by cutting off people may either be extremely hurt and therefore they need to do it, or they are victims of a scenario where we say if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem will look like a nail. If your toolkit, one way to look at EQ is it's a toolkit, it's a set of tools that helps me deal with different things, dealing with myself, building alliances, influencing other people, leading other people. So EQ, looked at properly, is a tool set. So before I think you reach the decision of cutting people off every time and in the cases like a debt gone bad or something, one muscle that individuals need to build is the muscle of having difficult conversations. Granted, it is way easier to walk away or avoid or run or scapegoat or do any of those things than confront difficult conversations. And so I feel the question asked borders on how do I have difficult conversations? And let me speak for a bit here. For something to qualify as a difficult conversation, it needs to have two components. One, the stakes are high. Two, the outcome is unclear. So the stakes are high. It could be, I lent you money, like in that situation, and that money is really important to me. Maybe it's money I needed for an investment, or I need it quickly back to buy something. The stakes are high, okay? But the outcome is unclear. The outcome is unclear that if I engage you, will we fight? If I continue engaging you, will we quarrel? it's unclear. Will you spread rumors about me? Will you mudsling me and everything? So any conversation in life where the stakes are high and the outcome is unclear qualifies for a difficult conversation. Now, life has very many of those. It can range from arguing with a tout about the bus fare. For those who in Kenya understand that you can magically walk into a bus and the fare that was announced before you boarded and the fare that is required when you're in changes. And at times you've really budgeted and you begin wondering, like, this 10 shilling or 20 shillings margin, is it worth, arguing about? But the stakes are high. Maybe for you that 20 shillings was going to be the amount you're going to buy some vegetables for the night, and you really are at the point where there's more month than money. And so for you, the stakes are high. And the outcome is unclear because you don't know whether the tout will decide to insult you or embarrass you or publicize the fact you're arguing about 10 shillings, or will they go violent? So at that point, when you're arguing in the matatu, it is a very difficult conversation you're having. Or it could be confronting your boss who is abusive, and the stakes are high because this is the person determining whether you are staying on the job or not. And for you, the job is important. And the outcome is unclear. You don't know if after that you will be victimized or if after that you will be let go. Okay, so you don't know. So what makes difficult conversations difficult is because we imagine it is a singular conversation. Yet in reality, it is a 3-in-1 conversation happening simultaneously. There are 3 streams running together. When we begin understanding that A, it is no longer one conversation, but that B, it is a 3-part conversation, then our ability to master the components of a difficult conversation become better. And why I'm throwing this, I know Chris' question is specific to money, but I'm just putting out the awareness and then the toolkit so that Chris can be able to use in his situation, and individuals in other difficult conversations can be able to have them rather than always running. I know I'm digressing at this point, because if we always run, if today I give money to person X and they don't pay, do I cut them off? Then tomorrow person B the same. In a year, I'll have cut myself off from too many people. But if I know how to have difficult conversations, I can I can become more comfortable with confronting. So what are the 3 streams of difficult conversation that are happening simultaneously? Number 1 is the what happened part of the conversation. And in the what happened part of the conversation, you'll be so shocked that Posa and I can go through a similar situation, experience it, but when we come out of it, how she explains what happened and what I explain as what happened could be very differently, because we engage in circumstances very differently. So I think individuals need to realize that there's a what happened part of the conversation. The challenge with the what happened part of the conversation is you don't know the motives or the things driving the other person fully. And so the part that you don't know, you make assumptions. So we assume that this person is not paying me because they want to spite me. This person is not paying me because they're being selfish. This person is not paying me because they just don't want to. And you really at times are making that up. And so you need to come clean and tell them, like, hey, this event has unfolded this way. My understanding of it is this. What is your understanding of it? So that you're aligned on what happened. Then the second part of the difficult conversation that is happening simultaneously is the part that we call who is to blame. So normally we are asking ourselves, who is to blame in this? And even in a situation where you're clearly the offended, you are, very clearly you're the offended, the powerful way of reshaping a difficult conversation is not to look at who's to blame, but to see what's the contribution. So maybe I lent you the money, but I did not make it clear to you enough that I'm really dependent on this money within these timelines, okay? Or whenever I come to ask for money, I'm very persistent. So the way to shift that is to move from blame to contributions. And you begin by asking, like, hey, we're in this tough situation. how might I have contributed? And contribution does not need to be 50-50. I could have done 2%, you could have done 98%. But when we move the conversation away from, I want to look for how I can blame you too, I want to understand how I may have contributed to this, it humanizes the other person. It removes the fangs from the conversation and allows individuals to begin engaging some more. So moving away from who's to blame to begin asking what's a contribution, and contribution does not need to be 50-50. So remember, part one is what happened, and the temptation there is to assume other people's motives, but the easy thing is to ask. Number two, it is who's to blame. Move from who's to blame and begin asking what's a contribution? Have you contributed? Have I contributed? And then the third thing is, the third part of the difficult conversation is, what does this say about me? Normally when somebody is dropping your calls or evading you or avoiding you, it has little to them being available, but has everything to do with, they know they're in this problem, they know there is this difficult conversation that they're trying to avoid. And a lot of it is, what does this say about me? I'm unable to pay you back. Does it say I'm irresponsible financially? Does it say I'm a bad friend? Does it say I'm unreliable? There's all of this happening. And at times the emotional outburst we see, this being a conversation about emotional intelligence, has everything to do with individuals putting out emotion as a shield against what they feel is their violated or misjudged or unappreciated or underappreciated persona. So a lot of anger or tantrum you're seeing there is an attempt to protect what seems to be an attacked individual. So many individuals are engaging in these cat and mouse games or mudslinging or gossip to try and protect the third part of themselves, which is of the difficult conversation, which is, what does this say about me? The way to deal with that is to preempt it, okay? In terms of, if I had a difficult conversation with Chris, I'll tell, hey, Chris, I would like us to meet. It's going to potentially be a difficult conversation, but A, I'm not going to judge you. I want to really listen out to you. And B, what time and place is going to be good, so that people don't feel ambushed or they don't come, uptight, but they know, like, hey, the timing, and this is going to be a difficult conversation. And it has, I'm not going to impute improper motive on you, but I just need to understand and for us to be able to navigate this. By shifting conversations that way, you can be able to increase the chance of amicable resolutions. And let me just say, some people will remain jerks even after everything I have said you have tried. It is at that point that then you decide, okay, this one is going to be an individual I will not lend money to, and it's going to shape the way I relate with them because it's a question of awareness. Often we do not do everything I have suggested. We're just quick to act more out of emotion and cut off people rather than to try and engage them. And that's my long answer to your very short question, but I hope some tips and gems have been dropped that you can be able to use along life. Paul, back to you.
I want to just attempt to answer Rose Ezra's question. Let me just because I need to share it. It goes back to the parenting. I've put it in the chat. It's about, in a nutshell, how do we also help teens with self-image in preteen and teenage and accepting themselves? And I want us to go back to this. Let me see if it. Let me try and share. To Bruce Perry's, that thing we did for. Okay, let me see if it will work. Oh, okay. What's showing up on? Are you able to see my screen? It shows everything, but it shows the reason, relate, and regulate. The Bruce Perry triangle of parenting and reducing trauma helps us to regulate the child so that you can relate and then reason. Most of the time we flip this triangle and want to reason and then relate and regulate. We did this during the parenting the parenting Zoom discussion we had a few months back. Rose, you need to at least relate to this triangle, try and regulate your child, and then you can relate to them and then reason with them. Because teenagers are just growing up. They just need someone who listens to them. And most probably the child wasn't listened to. Just have this discussion and maybe, just maybe, they'll stop being malicious. I think we've captured most of the crux of emotional intelligence. Does anyone else on the call have a question? Albert, do you want to add anything, or do you think, do you feel like we've adequately covered it?
What I will add, I'll add something called strategic communication.
Okay.
Speaking. And the reason why I say that is that, you see, based on what we have talked about, based on even the questions from the audience, sometimes we tend to communicate, but we're not communicating strategically. So what is strategic communication? Strategic communication is communicating with purpose while showcasing value with the intention of achieving a particular goal. So even as you navigate around issues around what we've learned about emotional intelligence, remember, as you're executing it, and of course, execution is more often than not communication. It is communication. Always purpose to think of strategic communication. That's what I'd like to add.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you have anything else to add? And Jackie, thank you, yeah. Sarah, do you have anything else to add?
What there's still gems in the old mantra that people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And good emotional intelligence, still to the parenting question, it requires that it allows you to build that safety net of care. And once you're within that safety net of care, you're able to express everything from discipline to tough love to candid feedback. But outside of that safety net of care, which is created by emotional intelligence, you cannot be able to achieve the same. What is true about families is also true about work, is also true about church, is also true about society. That we can use emotional intelligence to knit together a safety net and a safety environment within which we can transact more deeply, more meaningfully. So emotional intelligence is often looked at as something soft. In fact, it's called soft skills. But really, it is this soft power that helps people go further. There's a mantra that says ladies who are more, the stereotype is they are more aligned with the softer things. The softer powers of softer skills, more of nature. It says that it is ladies who actually rule the world, because the hand that rocks the cradle shapes the world. And it's really because a lot of the emotional intelligence is imparted by them. So there's really a lot of truth that the investment we put into building our emotional intelligence will be responsible for way bigger portions of our success than we are able to understand now. So let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. And thank you very much. Thank you, Albert. You are wonderful. And we will chat on, because of course there are more topics to come, right? Thank you very much. Saya, as usual, my kitchen cabinet, my sidekick, thank you. The people on the call, thank you. Your questions were very eye-opening, and thank you for making time on a Sunday evening in Kenya to join us. Karibuni sana. You can share the video is on Authentic Dialogue page, and you can follow it there and you can share it out. Please follow Albert on his socials. He copied them here. Yes, and call him for paid gigs. Is so that he can spread EQ and all the other awesome stuff he's doing. Asanteni, unless someone else has a burning issue. You can have Happy Mother's Day to the people who birth people, and Happy Monday. I think you at least, yes, and Albert has put his number there. And Happy Monday, at least you're going back to reality after your 3-day week. We are still jealous, but Happy Monday. And kwaherini. I let people live at their own pleasure. I will stop the record, stop sharing.